Hello, my name is Peter Ahmed and you're watching RPTV. In July of 2023, Toronto Community Housing Corporation, TCHC, was successful in obtaining City Council's approval for rezoning for the final phases 4 and 5 of the Regent Park revitalization. Despite city approval, concerns about the rezoning application continue to persist. RPTV reached out to Stephanie Beattie and Walied Khogali, two community leaders critical of the rezoning application, and has brought their concerns forward to Peter Zimmerman, a senior staff member of Toronto Community Housing. Stephanie Beattie is a past member of the Regent Park Neighborhood Association. In an interview with Gabriel Meisner, she revisits how rezoning shaped phases 1, 2, and 3, and reveals that social housing units in phases 1, 2, and 3 have an expiry date.
Welcome to RPTV, Stephanie.
Thanks.
Now, during the time of your involvement with the RPNA, you had the opportunity to gain unique insights into the whole revitalization process, and we would appreciate learning about these experiences. But what we really would like to speak to you about is a comment you made at a recent community meeting where you stated that you had knowledge that the Toronto Community Housing Corporation and the City of Toronto, who share responsibility for the Regent Park revitalization project, are not bound to keep the social housing units beyond 25 years. A somewhat surprising revelation.
If you look at the neighborhood today, we're sitting in phase 2. Phase 1 is just over there. And these two phases followed the vision for Regent Park, which was predominantly low and mid-rise housing, like the original community, which is what was promised to the original inhabitants of Regent Park, that the character of their community wouldn't fundamentally change, or at least they would stop it from fundamentally changing as much as possible. And so that was one of the commitments. So I think the Regent Park revitalization is very complicated. And there are a lot of things that people aren't aware of just because it is so complicated. So the fact that the rebuild of the rent geared to income units are only protected for 25 years, and then Toronto Community Housing doesn't have to keep them as social housing after that point. I think a lot of people don't know that.
Can you comment on the claim by resident advocate Stephanie Beattie that TCHC's rent geared to income units only have a 25-year commitment in the recent video regarding phases 4 and 5 rezoning application for Regent Park produced by RPTV?
Yeah, that's an unfortunate misunderstanding of what happened through the rezoning process. In the city's documents, yeah, it says somewhere that there's an obligation for 25 years. That's kind of boilerplate language. That's which is in the city's documents. Toronto Community Housing, to be very clear, has a commitment to long-term affordable housing in Regent Park in perpetuity. So no one should be concerned about any changes in the amount of affordable housing or any changes in the amount of rent geared to income housing. That housing has been locked in perpetuity. So that's a misnomer, and we don't want that rumor to go around the community that people might lose their affordable housing. That simply will not happen.
In another interview with Gabriel Meisner, Walied Khogali is co-chair of the SDP Regent Park Stakeholders Table and resident co-chair of Community Benefits Oversight Working Group, argued that there is insufficient allotment for community spaces as articulated by the 28 different residents and not-for-profit groups that indicated a need for space in a community building spacing report submitted to TCHC, and insists that a desire for a central community-owned and governed space has gone unheard.
Yeah, one of the biggest priorities of residents identified in the Community Priorities Report, which you can find actually online, is the importance of a centrally community-governed space. And what that means is we want to implement the AOCC model, which is the Association of Community Centers, basically a model funded by the City of Toronto and supported by the City of Toronto, where you have a community board, members of the community sitting on the board of directors that manage a space and basically come up with the policies and practices that best support the residents of the community. Also, if we need programming after 5 o'clock, we make sure that the building is accessible after 5 o'clock. If we need funding for certain initiatives, we'll make sure that there's a fund available to support some of those initiatives throughout the year. So what we want is we want a community governance model for space. We don't want to have different spaces partitioned in different buildings around the neighborhood, and they're managed by different organizations or agencies. We want the community to manage all this amazing community space in phases 4 and 5 in one central location.
How do you respond to residents' concerns about the lack of space for cultural and not-for-profit groups in the rezoning application, especially given the 28 identified groups with space needs?
So it's a great question, and we actually heard a lot from residents about their concerns around space during the rezoning process, and we've responded. There's over 30,000 feet of new cultural space that is a part of the plan for Regent Park moving forward. So that space wasn't part of the plan previously, and it's space that we've made possible through the rezoning, in addition to the 26,000 square foot Toronto Public Library. So where we were at and where we're at now, there's a dramatic change, and those changes that we made were in direct response to concerns that we heard in the community.
As part of the redevelopment planning process, Toronto Community Housing, working with its development partner, Tridel Building Incorporated, had to submit an application for rezoning for approval by City Council. For those of us who don't know, what is a rezoning application? And why is it required?
Yeah, so to begin with, I think it's really important to know that the plans for Regent Park have evolved over time. The original work was done in the early 2000s, and there have been a couple of other rezoning applications that have been filed over the course of the life of the project. Rezoning was always contemplated when the project started, and what rezoning has done is change the configuration of buildings, the heights, the locations, the amount of density available. So Regent Park has been an evolving project over time, and we've responded to opportunities and to changes and demands in the community as we moved along. So for instance, the original plans for Regent Park didn't include the Regent Park athletic grounds. So when the opportunity came to build the athletic grounds and funding was available, plans were changed to accommodate that. Same thing happened when there was the opportunity to build the aquatic center. Plans were changed to accommodate the aquatic center. Finally, more recently, in the last couple of years, we were looking at the final phases of Regent Park, the phases 4 and 5, along Gerrard, between Oak and Gerrard. And we looked at a couple of opportunities we had. One was, there was an opportunity to put in a new Toronto Public Library, which was not part of the plan. And we knew that there was going to be funding available for new affordable housing. So once again, we changed the plans through a rezoning process where we moved around the locations of buildings, changed the heights of buildings, and actually increased the overall building of the community to facilitate new affordable housing, some new market housing, and the new Toronto Public Library.
Would you care to comment on the issue of rezoning and how the shift in development priorities have altered both the physical and social development of Regent Park in phases 1, 2, and 3, and now in phases 4 and 5?
Yeah, I mean, Regent Park, the revitalization was enabled through rezoning. So there was originally a community here of I don't know how many people, but there were 2,000 units, 2,100 units. And to pay for the refurbishment of the old housing to make it better, they decided to do a revitalization and add a bunch of condos. And this partnership with a private developer would pay for the replacement of the old housing. So that was the original vision. And they went forward with that. And then again, it was contract renegotiations. Nobody really knows what happened in 2014. It all happened behind the scenes. And so they broke the contract with Daniels. Excuse me. They broke the contract with Daniels and renegotiated it in order to ensure that Daniels got to build as many of the units as they were promised. They intensified phase 3, gave Daniels phase 3. They doubled the size of it. They increased the density of it. They added 2,000 more condos. So, I mean, Regent Park is ostensibly about affordable housing, but the priority has really been given to condominiums. So not just the original 2,500 that were added, but then the next 2,000 that were added, and now a few thousand more are going to be added. And so to accommodate that, they have to change the physical nature of this project, and it's turning into a high-rise development. And it's a shame because it was never supposed to be that.
How did Toronto Community Housing go about carrying out the rezoning process? In other words, how involved was the community in participating in the rezoning process?
We're really proud of what we did on the rezoning in terms of our working with the community. We've had more than 1,500 points of contact with members of the community through town halls, door-to-door meetings, walks through the neighborhood, community outreach. This is probably one of the most heavily consulted rezoning processes anywhere at any point in the history of the city. So we're really proud of the work that we did with the community. We're really proud of the input that we got, how it was incorporated into the plans, and that I think that has been reflected in the broad support that we've received in the community for the rezoning application.
What's the new ratio of market price units to rent year to income units in Regent Park after phases 4 and 5 of the redevelopment, as per the latest rezoning application, compared to the originally proposed equal ratio?
So let's begin from the very beginning. The first premise of that question is that there was a plan in place at the very beginning that there would be a 50-50 ratio of market and non-market housing. That was never part of the plan. In fact, it was always contemplated that there would be more market and affordable housing than rent geared to income housing in the final plans of Regent Park. So we've always been operating within that premise, that there should be a mix of housing opportunities. Our plans were always to replace 100% of all the rent geared to income housing. And as we build out phases 4 and 5, we will meet our obligations to replace all the rent geared to income housing. Plus we're adding a considerable amount of new affordable rental housing into the mix. What we've been able to achieve in the final phases of the plan is on a square footage basis, the community housing, the Toronto community housing, the affordable housing is very close to the same amount as the amount of market housing in Regent Park. So in the final phases, we're getting closer to that 50-50 mix, which people are interested in achieving. We're interested in achieving, but we're trying to balance the needs of the community with the economics of the development, and also just trying to create a mixed income community. So as we move into those final phases were close on a square footage basis. There are fewer rent geared income units because those units are very, very big. Some of them are as big as 5 bedrooms. Most of the condominium units are smaller. They're 1 and 2 bedroom units. So on a floor area basis, we're pretty close between the affordable and the RGI and the market housing.
How many buildings over 30 floors will be constructed in phases 4 and 5, and what's your response to concerns about higher density, parking, and the impact of high-rises on community cohesion, as raised by resident advocates and CBC News coverage?
Yeah, I think we have now in the final plan, I think we have 3 buildings that are in excess of 30 stories. We're not concerned about it. We have worked with world-class designers. We've worked closely with the community. We have placed the buildings in a way that we minimize the shadow impacts. We've increased the amount of public amenities that are going to service those buildings in the broader community. We think it's a great plan. We think this plan is going to serve the community well. We're not concerned about the additional height. And in fact, the additional height, the additional density, all of that is what is supporting the library, the new community spaces, the community retail, that's all a part of the plan. All of that would not be possible unless we had those higher buildings and the more density in the development. So it all works together as part of a cohesive approach to building this new community. We think we've got a great plan. The plan was developed in close consultation with the community. and it has been broadly accepted and broadly supported in the community. There are certain people who are unhappy with it, but broadly the community has supported the plans because they understand the relationship between the amount of density there and all of the new public amenities that are now part of the plan.
Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please follow us on all our social media platforms, and for more information, please check out our website.